Hi everybody, and welcome back to another Route 2 video. For anyone who watched the Hillbilly Hot Dogs video, you know the story, but if you're new here, I'll tell you now. A few years ago, I went down Route 2 with my family and talked to some really interesting people at some really cool places, with the goal of creating a long-form documentary about West Virginia State Route 2. This was my first attempt at a documentary of this kind, and my own inexperience and the timing of our trip led to a need for some reshoots, which later technical difficulties and a global pandemic made unlikely. So instead, I'm posting each segment as a separate video, out of appreciation for the people who were nice enough to participate. This one is at the C.A. Smith house, the C.A. Smith mansion in Chester, West Virginia, which is now owned by TruNorth LLP. And I interviewed Mr. Chuck Bailey of TruNorth, which if any of my friends from school are listening is interesting. If you know Dr. Charles Bailey at Marshall University, I asked, they don't know each other, just two people with the same name. Okay, so this starts off with a brief tour given by Mackenzie Bailey, and then an interview with Chuck Bailey, who talked a lot about the history of the place. And those are overlaid with photos generously provided by Sherry Emery and by the people behind laurelhollowpark.net. They're not always one-to-one representations, but they always fit the theme of the segment. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so here you walk in the door and this is our, formal conference room here that we have guests come in and, they can rent out this space for their own meetings, or we'll hold our own meetings here. And then if we want to walk around here, we have, our big open kitchen here.
Oh, nice.
That we, when we host parties here or in events, we can have, we can do our cooking here, or we can have it catered and, keep the food warm in the oven. And
do you host events here?
We actually just had a Christmas party last week, for our kind of open house to our company. So this is kitchenette area, and back here is just some more offices, and then here actually is photographs of what used to be Rock Springs Park. I'm not sure. And here's just a few more photographs. You can see looking down, there's the C.A. Smith mansion actually up here, the side of it. And this was looking down over Rock Springs Park.
Cool.
And then also here's another photo of it up there. Which way are you going? Go. Yeah, that way.
So where would this be now?
Where is this at?
Well, I know it's in there anymore, but where would this be? Like
this, yeah. So if we were looking, if we're in this house, this window right here would be that window.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this,
like where the road is.
right, this, yeah, where the highway is going and where, going into the bridge is where Rock Springs Park was.
Okay. Because it's actually very interesting the way
It
the
is.
highways change.
Right. And then, sorry, excuse us. Upstairs is all offices. We have our formal living room here for more relaxed meetings and enjoy some quiet time.
Getting into the details. The story is on this place is you have a turn-of-the-century historic mansion
Right.
that was built by an entrepreneur that was and I don't know the exact year built of the house, so I think we call it a turn-of-the-century mansion, and you can decide to do the research or not on when it was there. But the backstory, I think, is this: what makes it interesting is that around 1900, this guy by the name of C.A. Smith built this home overlooking the town of Chester, from which he had created several sources of. He was an entrepreneur, right? He owned the bridge between Chester and East Liverpool, and so he controlled all the commerce coming through. And there is a book that called Rock Springs Park that also you can find more details on my website about it by a guy by the name of Joe Kong. And so C.A. Smith, in fact, Joe Kong wrote a history of this whole area, and if you go to the website and look up his information, you will be able to probably get hold of him and do 5-minute phone interview and get all your backstory if you really want to make things interesting, because he's wrote the book. All right. And so if you think about C.A. Smith, he was a serial entrepreneur. He built the Taylor Smith and Taylor Pottery, which was where this big blue building is out the window here, was a huge industrial site that he built to form pottery. And Route 2 is all about pottery. So if you want to know, right, you've done that backstory. Route 2 is all about pottery because there's
tourism.
What's that?
And tourism.
I don't think it's tourism at all.
If you go south, you get a lot of them.
Yeah.
In the southern half of the state, the big draw to Route 2 is hillbilly hot dogs.
Is what?
Hillbilly hot dogs.
I don't know what that is. I've been here 30 years.
A restaurant and tourist attraction.
Got it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So at the northern end of Route 2, lies. So at the northern end of Route 2, lies the city of Chester, and the city of Chester basically was founded around the pottery industry in the late 1800s. And I think one of the things you probably want to do as well is go from here to a quick stop at the city building. There's a historical display there that tells a little bit about the history of Chester, and pictures and interesting things on the wall and all that. That's easy to grab some B-roll. But C.A. Smith was a serial entrepreneur. He had a wide array of interests, from the Taylor Smith and Taylor Pottery, which was a large industrial site, manufacturing dishware for restaurants and for home use. In addition, he built the Chester Bridge, which was and owned that and charged tolls to.
You could own a bridge.
You can own a bridge, yes. There was, up until the time the new highway was built, there were 2 privately owned bridges in Chester across the Ohio River. One was the Chester Bridge, which C.A. Smith owned, and then there's another bridge that remains in town called the Newell Bridge, is a privately owned. And then, so he owned the Chester Bridge. He owned the Taylor, majority owner of Taylor Smith and Taylor Pottery. He also had a world-renowned collection of cattle on his cattle farm just northeast of the Smith home here.
How can a collection of cattle be world-renowned?
He had a world champion bull that was used for breeding, and the fees for breeding stock. So when you have a very pure bloodline of cattle, I don't know much about the cattle business. It, he at one point sold a bull, and there's some backstory on this, I'm sure, if you research it. Sold a bull for the largest price that had ever been paid in history for. For basically a bull. He had greenhouses, an agricultural farm. You will see in the photographs of the pictures that's on the wall, the same exact pictures are available on our website. There are about 100 postcards that you can go in there and pull up.
I'm hoping.
So C.A. Smith had greenhouses, agricultural interests, livestock interests, and then one of the things that he had acquired over time, he didn't originate the park, but was Rock Springs Park, and which sits just off of the southwest side of the home here. You'll see in the pictures that the home overlooks the park. The idea was the home was built on the bluff, overlooking the factory, overlooking the bridge, overlooking the park, which was, C.A. Smith's main sources of income and his notoriety. There's C.A. Smith was and I don't know the backstory, all of it, but there's a story that he was driving down Route 2 between Chester and New Cumberland, and there's a straight stretch down past Mountaineer Racetrack, and this would have probably been, he had the first gasoline automobile in the area. He had all these things, but this is when the county sheriffs were, really in automobiles and highways. I would imagine this maybe was in the 40s, 30s, but he was driving south on Route 2 at a high rate of speed and was stopped by a county sheriff and was given a speeding ticket. And upon giving the speeding ticket, he asked the sheriff, how much is the ticket? And the sheriff told him, and he said, well, you better make it for double that, because I'm going to be going just as fast on my way back through. C.A. Smith had Rock Springs Park. He acquired it, expanded it, built on it, and so he had his home overlooking the park, overlooking the potteries, overlooking the bridge, and as he and when he built this home, it was very simple in nature. It was well built with quality materials, but very simple in nature, in that you'll notice no oak or anything like that, trim or doors. The doors are very simple. The outside entrances are very simple. And he was a wealthy but simple man. His brother, who ran his agricultural and livestock interests, C.A. Smith built a home for him, which sits immediately behind this building. It's very ornate, multiple fireplaces, all the oak trim and grand staircases, and even frescoes on the ceiling. which was totally different than C.A. Smith. So he was all about plain and simple. So as C.A. Smith neared the end of his life, the house was sold to different families over the years who called this home, and then the property where Rock Springs Park sits was sold. The original bridge was torn down to make room for the new Jennings-Randolph Bridge and the interchange. So all of that went away, and then the new highway was built, which is Route 30 heading into Ohio. In 2000 and roughly 13, several things started to happen that's related to the history of this place, and more specifically C.A. Smith. One is that the Fox family, who currently own the building, bought the property in a state of disrepair with the intent of revitalizing the property and turning it into a bed and breakfast. And they worked on the project for several years while they were also continuing to expand their business. Around the same time, there was the large Taylor Smith and Taylor property that which the mansion overlooks. Was in a state of disrepair, falling in. It was a contaminated factory site, had been closed for decades, and the town pulled together and worked with local development authorities to get the old pottery torn down, the property remediated, and the site redeveloped into what's now called the Rock Springs Business Park. So if you think about a century later, 112 years later, at the turn of the century when this mansion was built, Chester was thriving. Tens of thousands of people would be here every weekend. Trolley cars ran, and streetcars ran through the city across the bridge to Ohio. The pottery area was booming. Housing was being built. Retail trade was there. Over the course of time and after World War II, the park went away, factories closed, it went into a state of disrepair. The Renaissance for Chester is really, we're at the beginning of the Renaissance for Chester, and some the idea here is that Foxes felt that this building was too grand to allow to go away. It was at a point where theoretically it should have been torn down. And the Foxes bought the property, and as the old Taylor Smith and Taylor pottery was being raised, the C.A. Smith house was being revitalized. And through the course of that activity, the house was being prepared to turn into a bed and breakfast. And however, Scott Fox and I happened to have lunch one day, and I floated an idea about, what do you think about bringing the house back to life, not as a bed and breakfast, but as the home of another entrepreneurial company, TruNorth. And so as the factory was being raised, the house was being revitalized, and now it has emerged as the headquarters for TruNorth. And TruNorth is my company, and we're an entrepreneur, I think is the full story. We built the company from scratch. We are in multiple lines of business, and the lines of business. TruNorth is a consulting, operations services, and technology services company. We provide consulting and advisory services to a wide range of businesses looking to grow, grow, or expand their businesses. We provide back office operations services to companies that need bookkeeping, medical billing, payroll, and other operation services. In addition, we provide technology services such as cloud servers and social media marketing to companies looking to grow and expand their business as well. TruNorth has 19 employees. most of which are housed in our new headquarters at the C.A. Smith Mansion.
So we're right here,
Yes.
like upstairs.
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
So that's your kind of your backstory on True North. The plans are to continue. The reason why we chose this site, it was very prominent. It was very high quality. Scott Fox and I and the Fox family had shared values of what this property stood for. Scott's very involved in the community. He gives back to the community in many ways. True North is very active in the community. This is our home. Many of our employees come from here. We while we've just moved in, we use the facility to host board meetings and other events for local nonprofits, and allow them access to the facility to conduct their meetings. We have meeting space and common space on the first floor, second floor production office, and third floor is our really our true entrepreneur incubator space. So if you think about what we do is that, in our shared values and vision for the community, True North wanted to make the building accessible, and then second is we actually have to run our business, which is our second floor production offices, and our third floor is all about entrepreneurism. It's all about growth. It's all about incubators. So we plan on using the third floor to incubate new businesses, and whether those are businesses that we have a direct interest in or businesses that we're just consulting on. So the theme of our business rests in the story of the photos on the wall, and in the if you think about C.A. Smith, at turn of the century, he was a serial entrepreneur. He had big plans. He created things big. And while he was a very simple man, he was very much about growth and making things happen. When you own a bridge, an amusement park, a pottery, a herd of cattle, and agricultural interests, you're very diverse. So that's why our first quote on the wall is a Daniel Burnham quote. If you know Daniel Burnham, he is considered the architect of Chicago after the great Chicago fire. Daniel Burnham says, "Make no little plans, they have no magic to stir men's blood." Translated in today's pop culture, that says, go big or go home.
Yeah.
All right? And so the story of the turn of the century was go big or go home. And this mansion in its restoration, Foxes could have just put it back together, but what they decided to do was make it grand. Go big or go home. True North, in what our values are, what we're trying to do, is we're trying to take local businesses and give them the tools and resources to go big or go home. All right? At the end of the hall, there's another quote by Colin Powell that translates to, you have to work your butt off every day to make that happen. It doesn't come for free. And I think the history of Route 2 is about people that work hard. And the history of what True North is trying to do is put big plans out there and start driving this renaissance. And the mansion is sort of the beacon of that full circle of what C.A. Smith did, in 1902, of saying, I'm going to go big. I'm going to put this house on the hill. There's not going to be anything else like it around, and I'm going to look down on all the things that I built. I'm going to go big or go home. And that lasted through a number of decades until time caught up with those industries, and they all went away.